Hi everyone, it's Katie from Paradise Falls family. In this video we'll be taking you through our stay in Los Angeles, California in August 2022. This was our second visit to LA but our first time with the kids and we had a brilliant time. This was part of a longer road trip around California and we'll cover our other stops in separate vlogs. As usual, in this video I'll talk you through what we did day by day in LA to give you a bit of an idea of how we spent our time as a family, and then later on I'll go through some of the more practical bits and what went into our planning. Our time in LA came at the very start of our holiday, so we began the morning in London at the Marriott Heathrow Windsor Hotel where we'd stayed overnight. This is one of our preferred Heathrow hotels as it offers a great value deal on an overnight stay and parking for the duration of your holiday, and it's only around a 10 to 15 minute taxi journey from the terminals. Our flight took off at around 11:30 AM from Heathrow Airport, so we were up early to get a taxi and arrived at the airport around 4 hours in advance to avoid some of the queues and to give us plenty of time beforehand. We had some breakfast, stocked up on snacks and then enjoyed a really smooth flight out to California with Virgin Atlantic. The kids were good as gold, and while they got a little bit bored, there was plenty of in-flight entertainment and we downloaded extra bits on their tablets to keep them occupied. We'd also recommend having as many snacks as you can carry, as these help keep the kids topped up, especially when they don't like the food served on the plane. After landing at LAX mid-afternoon, our first stop was the car rental centre to pick up our car with Alamo. We thought hard about what to do about a car this holiday but decided we needed one to get around LA with it being so big and spread out. The car rental centre isn't attached to the terminals, so you have to get on a short bus around 5 minutes from the terminals to the car rental centre. We'd selected an intermediate SUV so there was enough room to throw in our luggage, and we got on the road to our hotel, the Hilton Universal City, our home for the next 3 nights. We'd considered a few hotels, including the Garland nearby and the Hollywood Roosevelt, but we decided this hotel fit best with our busy itinerary, and it was also the best fit in terms of trying to get a day at Universal Studios Hollywood. We'd also stayed here last time Greg and I visited, so we knew it was a good hotel where we'd be really comfortable. The journey took around 40 minutes with a little traffic, and the route took us right through Hollywood past some of the famous sights, which just added to our excitement. The hotel has a big underground car park, so we were able to park up easily for around $35 a night. We checked in smoothly and our room was nice and spacious with 2 double beds. We had lovely views over the Hollywood Hills and could even see the top of Hogwarts Castle in Universal Studios over the road. We spent a bit of time settling in before getting a very early night with the time difference taking its toll. The next day we were of course up really early because of the jet lag, so with little else to do we decided to have some pool time to start the day. We were there for it opening at 6 AM in the dark and we had a great time with the pool and hot tubs all to ourselves for an hour. After a long day travelling the day before, this was just what the kids needed to blow off some steam. With the sun now coming up, we headed out for the day. Our first stop was the Griffith Observatory, only around 15 minutes away. The drive took us down past the Hollywood Bowl and back through Griffith Park and the Greek Theatre, up into the hills. There was a small parking lot at the top, which does fill up, but because we were there so early, there were very few people there at this time. The observatory provides fantastic views over the city and across to the Hollywood sign. Numerous movies have been filmed here, including Terminator, La La Land and Rebel Without a Cause. There's also a monument here to James Dean to commemorate that. Being so early in the morning, it was lovely and peaceful, and we spent about half an hour here enjoying the views. We also stumbled across someone playing the violin and filming themselves with the Hollywood sign in the background. It was a beautiful way to start the morning. On the way back down the hill, we also had a quick photo stop at the Greek Theatre. We couldn't resist being fans of the movie Get Him to the Greek. It looks a great venue, somewhere we'd really like to see a gig one day. We spent the next few hours enjoying Hollywood Boulevard and found a multi-storey car park just behind the Hollywood and Highland Mall. We loved strolling the streets, they were still really quiet, and spotting all of the famous names on the Walk of Fame outside the Chinese Theatre. Although a lot of the mall still wasn't open, we made our way up to the roof terrace to see the Kobe Bryant mural and to take in some more views. As I mentioned, a lot of the places were still shut, but we did manage to get some breakfast at the 25 Degree Diner, which is inside the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel over the road from the mall. The food was fantastic and it was great to recharge after a busy morning. The bill came to around $90, so a little pricey for breakfast, but it was definitely needed. Being part of the hotel, we were even able to get a quick look inside the lobby of this famous hotel where the very first Oscars were held. It was so cool and atmospheric, and we'd really like to come back here and stay one day. Very old Hollywood, and there are so many stories of things that have happened in this hotel. It was fascinating to see it in real life. Next up, we'd pre-booked a Hollywood sightseeing and celebrity homes tour. We'd selected this tour partly as a way to see a bit more of the wider area without having to drive ourselves, but also because the kids really wanted to see where some of the famous stars live. We did our research and pre-booked through Viator for around £100, link in the description below. The tour left from a little further along Hollywood Boulevard, just a 5-minute walk from the Chinese Theatre at around 10:30 AM, and it lasted for 2 hours. It took us around Hollywood, showing us some sights and filming locations before heading up into the Hollywood Hills and along Mulholland Drive. Among the homes we saw were those belonging to Katy Perry, John Stamos, Sylvester Stallone and Eva's favourite Taylor Swift. Of course, you can't see a lot from the outside, but it was lovely getting a feel for the area and exploring the famous hills. We had a quick stop off at a lovely overlook up in the hills, and then we headed down into Beverly Hills to see more homes and sights, including Al Pacino's house, Rodeo Drive, and finally a stop at the famous Beverly Hills sign. Then it was back into Hollywood and the Sunset Strip, seeing places like Whiskey A Go Go and the Viper Room, before heading back onto Hollywood Boulevard. The kids actually said that this tour was their highlight of the day, and although it's the classic cheesy tourist tour to take, we'd really recommend it. We only had a limited amount of time in LA, so this was a great little tour to see some of the top sites, and if you're short on time, it's well worth considering. Back on Hollywood Boulevard, we were able to explore a little better now that everything was open. First up was Girardelli's. This is next to the Disney-owned El Capitan Theatre, so it has some great exclusive Disney merchandise, as well as a fantastic little cafe where we enjoyed some ice cream sundaes to cool off. The El Capitan Theatre does periodically have events and showings of old classic Disney films, so make sure to check their website. They were running a Beauty and the Beast event that day, but we just didn't have enough time to squeeze it in, unfortunately. Back outside, we popped over to the Chinese Theatre to book our tickets for a short tour. We chose this over the tour of the Dolby Theatre next door, which is where the Oscars are held, as it was quite a bit cheaper and sounded a little bit more interesting given its history. The theatre is a working cinema, so tours run in between showings. They last around 45 minutes and cost about $16 per person. We were lucky and only had a 15-minute wait before the next tour, but it's worth checking the tour times in advance to avoid a long wait. Our guide gave us a brief overview of the history of the theatre, a walk around the building, and finally we spent some time in the main theatre. We found it interesting enough with it being such an iconic building, but it's probably not something we'd feel the need to do again. Our final stop in Hollywood was the BT21 store over the road, which Eva had been desperate to go in when we walked past earlier. Then we hopped in the car to see a little bit more of the city. First off, we went back to Griffith Park, this time to try and ride the carousel. This is particularly famous as being the spot where Walt Disney came up with the idea for Disneyland. As big Disney fans, we really wanted to come here and try it for ourselves, but unfortunately it was closed, despite what Google had told us. Admitting defeat with that one, we carried on to the Grove, around 30 minutes away. The Grove is an outdoor shopping and entertainment area next door to the farmers market, and you've probably seen this in numerous films, including one of our favourites, I Love You Man. We easily parked up in the multi-storey and spent some time shopping and exploring before having tea at the Cheesecake Factory, one of our favourites in the States. However, by this time, the long day and the jet lag were getting to us, so we paid a visit to Dylan's candy store to pep ourselves up with some treats before heading back to the car. Having had a jam-packed but absolutely brilliant day, we made our way back to the hotel for some rest and an early night. The next morning started much the same, with another early morning swim before we headed out to enjoy the day. Our first stop was in Burbank, and a quick roadside stop at the Walt Disney Studios just to have a peek inside the gates. We'd love to do a tour one day, but these are currently only open to D23 members, and I think the kids might be a little too young at the moment. Maybe one for next time. Then it was on to the Warner Brothers Studios, where we'd booked a studio tour. We'd actually done this tour last time we visited, so it wasn't originally on our to-do list this time. However, Eva's recently started watching a few episodes of Friends and wanted to look around, so we booked on. We'd selected the standard studio tour at 9 AM for $256 for the four of us, and we arrived in plenty time to get parked and have a browse in the shop before our tour began. The first part of the tour takes you through a small museum with a few interesting exhibits that we had a quick look at before the tram tour began. Our guide was fantastic, asking us all our favourite movies and shows so she could point out any filming locations on the lot. We spent the next hour exploring the backlot, seeing filming locations from movies and shows such as Spider-Man, Annie, West Wing, Friends, Full House, Pretty Little Liars, Gilmore Girls and Big Bang Theory to name but a few. We got to learn all about how movies are made, heard countless anecdotes, and one of the highlights was touring around one of the active sound stages where they had a set of All American all set up for us to walk around before they filmed the next day.
Street has since been transformed into Gotham City for the Batman movies, and it is also the futuristic Rouge City in Steven Spielberg's AI artificial intelligence. Talented production designers created these locations by adding physical elements to these facades. But in The Last Samurai, when Billy Connolly and Tom Cruise round the corner and head off into the distance in 19th century San Francisco, they were really walking off of Hennessy Street. And on to The Greatest Showman, starring Hugh Jackman, Zac Efron, and Zendaya, for the song A Million Dreams, when P.T. Barnum is a little boy and we get the whole flashback series. This is where he's running around the street getting into mischief and dreaming of the possibilities of his future. It was also in Clint Eastwood's Jersey Boys. He's had his album cover photo shoot for Purple Rain. And also deep in the alley is where we had the iconic upside-down Spider-Man kiss from the Spider-Man starring Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst. Dandridge, the Oscar-winning film The Artist. And it was also in Friends, where Joey has his first ever movie premiere. Joey takes Chandler as his date. The two walk the red carpet together, but of course Joey insists that Chandler squat down so he can remain tallest in front of the paparazzi. Cause, starring James Dean. All three of his movies are Warner Brothers Pictures, Giant East of Eden, and Rebel Without a Cause. And to the left is the Tanner's house from Full and Fuller House, the real house.
The tour then finished at another museum area which includes some of the Friends and Big Bang sets and props, DC and Harry Potter exhibits and other interactive exhibits which the kids loved looking at, including the opportunity to hold a real Oscar statue. There was also a Friends cafe and shop which we had a look around before we got the shuttle back to the main building. Overall, we really enjoyed the Warner Brothers Studio tour and the kids had a great time, particularly with the Friends sets and props and the Harry Potter exhibits, definitely their highlights of the tour. Afterwards, it was time for lunch and we'd made reservations at the Tam O'Shanter restaurant just over 10 minutes away. This restaurant is located close to the original Walt Disney Studios and was often used by Walt Disney himself and his Imagineers on their lunch breaks, so it was somewhere we thought would be really interesting to visit. It's located in a lovely old building and it's very reminiscent of an old English pub. The menu was a little quirky, not the best for kids, but all in all it was a really fun experience. There is even a table with a plaque marking Walt Disney's favourite table and Disney artwork on the wall gifted by the Walt Disney Company, making it a really good stop for any Disney fans. I really enjoyed having Yorkshire puddings for lunch, but was a little bit dubious about their choice to serve it with lemon curd and jam. Being in a Disney mood, we thought we'd have another try for the Griffith Park carousel, which was only 5 minutes down the road. However, it was shut again, so they clearly don't stick to their advertised opening times. We finally admitted defeat and headed off to Santa Monica for the afternoon. The drive took around 45 minutes, and fortunately we were able to squeeze into the car park right next to the pier. We started off at Pacific Park on the pier, enjoying the rides, games and snacks, and we all had a whale of a time. It was pretty busy though and extremely hot, so we decided to spend some time on the beach, cooling off in the waves. After a lovely afternoon on the beach and our tummies rumbling, it was time for tea, so we grabbed a bite to eat at Bubba Gump's on the pier just as the sun was starting to set, before heading back to the hotel for the evening. Our final day in LA was spent at Universal Studios Hollywood. We were up early again to pack up our luggage, load it into the car and check out of the hotel. We were at the studios for Rope Drop, given it was just a few minutes walk up the road from our hotel. We've been lucky enough to visit Universal Studios a couple of times in Orlando, including earlier this year, and so for this visit we decided to concentrate on the attractions not available in Orlando, as well as a few of our old favourites. Our first stop, we headed straight to Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, and we were able to ride it a few times before the queue started really building up. The park remained fairly quiet for the first couple of hours, so we were able to get quite a lot of rides done, including The Simpsons, Despicable Me, Secret Life of Pets and Kung Fu Panda. Then it was time for the studio tram tour, which was our main must-do for that day. Again, we loved it, and it's a great part of the park. We were able to see sets and props from Jurassic Park, The Good Place, Desperate Housewives, War of the Worlds, Don't Look Up and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, to name a few.
That's it, right? It's just a little drizzle, nothing more. Wait, say it again, what? Okay, hold on. Card 3 is somebody to look to the left, everybody look to the left. Look everyone, it's just water. Leonardo DiCaprio, filmed right here, as well as some scenes with Brad Pitt. And you can tell just by looking at the area that it's been used in a number of westerns over the years. Colonial Street, but for many years it was Wisteria Lane up to the Desperate Housewives. This area has quite a bit of history to it. That purple house on the left was the original 1313 Mockingbird Lane from the Monsters show in the 60s. Those of you who watched Never Have I Ever recognize the house over there on the left, the yellow one. That's Davy's house, played by actress Maitreyi Ramakrishnan. If you've been watching Bel Air, then you definitely recognize Colonial Street from Bel Air. We're coming up to one of the sets for Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds, starring Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning.
I'll be talking about the War of the Worlds. What if the 747 goes down right in a big neighborhood? Because it's just something you don't see.
You're doing good. You're doing good. Keep pressing me. Pressing me. Listen, close your eyes, okay? Stay close.
Emotion and bring it to life. This is Jupiter's Claim, a nostalgic, small-time Southern California amusement park owned by former child star Ricky G. Howard. Over there, look into the winking room and have your picture taken just like the kids in that old 90s movie Kid Show. That's what this place is based on. Remember that one? No? It's an unbelievable new live show. It's not looking so live anymore. Anyway, behind this Hollywood fantasy, the gold rush comes to town.
tour also effectively builds in and includes the King Kong and Jaws rides from the Orlando parks, which we loved. I'd say the only disappointment was that we didn't get to see the town square from Back to the Future and the famous clock tower. It was pointed out from a distance in a flash, but I think you have to pay to upgrade to the VIP tour to get a better look. Back in the park after a quick lunch at Minion Cafe, which we'd really recommend, the food was surprisingly good here, we were able to head over to the Waterworld show, our last must-do for the day. The effects in this show are fantastic and it was a big hit with the kids. We also got sprayed a little, which helped cool us off as it was getting incredibly hot by now, given it's August in California. Finish up, we headed down to the lower lot for a quick look. There weren't any rides the kids were too bothered about this time down here, and the crowds and queues were getting pretty busy, so we had a wander round, did a bit of shopping, then headed for the exit. By now it was about 3:30 and perfect time to head back to the car and get on the road over to Anaheim for our next stop on our California road trip. The journey over was really busy and we hit some traffic, meaning that it took well over an hour. However, after a quick stop at McDonald's for tea, we arrived and checked into our hotel, the Park View Inn, just outside of the Disneyland gates, before dropping our rental car at the Alamo office around 5 minutes away. It's a Sunday and the office was closed, so we dropped our keys through the letterbox and then walked back to the hotel, which only took about 10 minutes. There was just enough time left for a quick swim to cool off after a long busy day before an early night ready for some hectic days in the Disney parks. So that was our time in Los Angeles. It was really busy, really hectic, but tons of fun. The kids really loved it and it's definitely somewhere we'd like to bring them back to. Moving on to some planning tips. First of all, how did we decide to spend our time? As I mentioned, Greg and I have been to Los Angeles before, so we'd already seen a lot of the main sites already. However, it's such a big city with so much to do, there was loads of things we still wanted to do, while at the same time we were really mindful to try and find things that the kids would particularly enjoy. We were really pleased with what we settled on, but there were loads of things we would have liked to have done had we more time. Downtown LA is one of those in particular, with the Grammy Museum, LA Live and the Staples Center where the Lakers play. It wasn't basketball season while we were there, but we've seen the Lakers play before and it's a great experience and something the kids did want to do had it been possible. A baseball or NFL games were also things we looked at but couldn't quite fit in. Back in Hollywood and Mid-City, there are still loads of fun things that we didn't have time for, like the El Capitan Theatre, the Dolby Theatre, the Hollywood Bowl, the New Academy Museum and the La Brea Tar Pits. There's also a couple of other studio tours you can do, like Sony and Paramount, that we couldn't do this time as they have age restrictions. You can even go to a taping of a TV show. Last time we were here, we got same-day tickets to the Jay Leno show while we were at Universal Studios, which was a great experience. Further afield, we'd love to spend more time on the coast, particularly around Long Beach, and maybe take a day trip out to Catalina Island or to go whale watching. There's just so much for us all to enjoy, we're definitely hoping to be back soon for a longer stay. Moving on to our hotel choice, this is something we puzzled over for a really long time. We very nearly stayed at the Hollywood Roosevelt, right in the middle of Hollywood, but ended up staying at the Hilton Universal City purely so we could have a day in the Universal theme park and jump straight in the car onto our next stay in Anaheim. This worked out around £250 per night plus $35 per night for parking. Having now seen the Hollywood Roosevelt, it looks a great hotel to stay in and something we'd love to experience. Hollywood itself though did seem a little rough in places, and all in all we were glad on this occasion not to be staying there with young children. If we could choose for our next visit, we'd like to experience staying in Beverly Hills to spend a little bit more time in that area, but that will very much depend on our budget. Next, let's talk about driving. Again, we thought about this long and hard. We'd heard horror stories about LA traffic, and so we're really wary about driving, but decided in the end that we had to because the city is so spread out. Actually, it wasn't too bad, with just a couple of traffic jams on the highway, particularly around the downtown area, and we'd definitely do it again. It worked so much better than our last visit when we didn't have a car and felt pretty restricted with where we could go and what we could do. So that's our trip to Los Angeles. We hope this was useful for your trip, and if you've got any questions or any other tips, then please let us know in the comments below. We'll be adding more vlogs covering our California road trip in the coming months, so please make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more from us. Thank you so much for watching.